Hello everybody and welcome to our second episode of Cape Rugby here on Cape Town TV. Well, the first episode was a half an hour. Now it's a full hour because we have so much to talk about. Coming up on the show tonight, we'll of course look at the logs, the results and the fixtures and a few other features. We'll take a look at nutrition in the world of rugby. Recently there's been a legal precedent set. And of course, we'll take a look at the history of rugby. Joining me tonight during the course of the show will be Cecil Lateghan, the president of Perseverance and also a lifetime member of Western Province Rugby. More on that a little bit later. Joining me on the show, Herman Abrams, the Deputy CEO of Western Province Rugby. Hello, Herman.
Good evening, sir.
Nice to have you back.
Thank you for having me back.
I can see you're dressed very smartly there, and obviously you've just come from an executive committee meeting.
You're quite correct, sir.
Marvin Swartboy, the captain of Durban. Team's doing well. Welcome to welcome to Cape Rugby.
Thank you very much.
Nice to have you. And Sali Sukker, the coach of Primrose.
Good evening, JP.
Nice to have you on board as well.
Pleasure.
Gentlemen, it's been a rough ride for a couple of the clubs. I think it's time for us to take a look at some of those results then over the weekend. Marvin, let's ask you. You guys, at Durban, you've played against Vix and you've played against. I don't think you've played Helderberg yet this season, but
Not yet.
yeah. So it was an interesting result in Vix 22-20 over Helderberg.
Oh yes, it just shows that the league is really open.
Yeah.
There's not just one team that's going to be dominating. So it's a battle, a real battle at the end of the day.
Is that is that how you guys see it in Super League A? That the league is sort of a scenario of any team can win it on any day?
Exactly. If you don't pitch up on the day,
yeah,
you're definitely going to lose your game. You can't expect be one of those that it's your home game that you're going to win it. Because if you don't actually get there prepared, you will definitely lose your game.
And of course, you guys pitched up over the weekend with a nice result against Marties, 15-9. Were you expecting that?
We definitely made sure that was one of our goals in the beginning of the year, that making sure that we win our game against Marties. And it's actually been history. We've never won Marties at Marties. So it was a great experience, a great game. And like I said, history in the making.
Is Marties that sort of club that everybody is saying this is the club that one has to beat? Or now with the Varsity Cup and so forth, UCT is also up there, and we know UWC is in the mix now as well. But is that what everyone's benchmarking themselves against, UCT and Marties, or are those days over?
No, back in the day it was those that they were just targeted as the teams to be beaten, and then you think that you've pretty much, some teams will think you've done lost enough for the league. But like I said earlier, it's very much open at the moment. So anybody can have a chance of actually taking the league. Anybody can have a chance of ending up on top.
Yeah.
So the competition is tough, and I think all the teams are pretty much fairly evenly up. So it's quite tough, quite tough. Competition is very, very tough.
Mr. H, one of the derby matches over the weekends, False Bay against the Hamiltons, 15-14. What a match!
What a result!
What a result!
If you just take the week prior or in the week, False Bay got clobbered 58-7 by Marties, and to recover like that within a couple of days. Says really that they are really a team to watch for the year.
But Tasali, when you look at a scenario like that, where in the middle of the week the team is not doing great, and you come back on the Saturday, why is that? Is it a question of confidence? Is it a question of being tired on the day?
You've got to compliment the players' fitness, though.
Yeah.
From a Wednesday to a Saturday, to lift up the spirit and the level of playing, that's a great compliment to the team's effort on the whole, in general, and especially against a team like Hamiltons. Hamiltons ain't no walkover. And for them to beat Hamiltons, it's a feather in their cap.
And again, it comes to Mr. H, it comes back to the scenario that, or the fact that that the Super League A teams are really learning, to play in that league. Whether you're just in the league now for the first time or you've been there before, but you come back. But there seems to be a big gap between Super League A and B. And once you're there, you're learning quite a lot in the process.
Yeah, well, look at Belha. They lost to Marties, but they went on to beat Vix in the week.
Yeah.
So, anybody can beat anybody. And for Durbanville to keep the Marty machine away from scoring a try, that's also something special. There are very few teams that can keep Marties at bay when it comes to scoring tries.
Well, I'm absolutely sure about that, considering the fact that they've done so well in the Varsity Cup. Shock result, and I suppose, well, maybe not a shock result, but I mean, we had Munib Levy here last week. An enormous result for Villagers over, or at least SK Warmers over Villagers. Marvin, do you think Villagers got a bit of a surprise there?
Definitely they did. Like I said earlier, they must have expected that they are going to win.
Yeah.
But SK Warmers was obviously much more hungry. They were much more. They wanted it more. If you want something more, you will definitely go out and take it, and that's exactly what they did.
And that passion counts for a lot in Super League,
Very
across the board.
Would
you agree with that, Sally?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's all about the passion. The passion carries you
I've
through.
been affiliated with the Scottish Football Club, and I can tell you that that's one of the derbies they want to win.
Yeah, big
Scottish
derby,
Club, yeah.
So some fantastic results then in Super League A. Now, of course, there was another derby match over the weekend. That happened in Super League B. It was Collegians against Primrose, and one of the friends of Cape Rugby TV and Cape Town TV, incidentally, went down to the field at Die Gat to go and watch Primrose against Collegians, one of the biggest derby matches this season. Have a look at this.
I'm expecting it will be a yellow game, and you know it is a derby. And unfortunately, sorry for Primroses, because we are very in for them, and it's going to be a yellow hiding for them. Believe me or not, it will be. Well, there are youngsters here, and I want to say for you to come out here, thank you very much, and for the future of our youngsters, they will go to Singapore the end of this year, and I hope they will do the best and come back as the best ambassadors.
Zain, what's happening today?
Today we will separate the men from the boys. It's going to be one of the derbies in a long time. And all I can say is we will definitely bring the points home.
We're going to go out there and have some fun. But yeah, nice day for rugby, a little bit windy, but I'm looking forward to a good one.
2, 3,
Take it quick, take it quick, take it quick. That's all quite does it. Yes, take it quick. That's it. Take the pot under the poles. Where's the forwards off in not one ball?
Right there.
Oh, certainly looks like that was an interesting scenario. Sally, it was a big match for you guys over the weekend.
That's
It
good.
looks like the guys gave it a hammer and tongs.
To put the game in perspective, where Collegians is concerned, they got a good flyer.
Yeah.
Junaid Girdin, excellent kicker. Basically, he put them on the front foot the whole game. Missed 2 penalties, but the structure of the game wasn't up to standard, but we delivered. Just the final penalty where we lost by 2 points. As you can see the result, 27-25.
Yeah.
Disheartening for us. We expected to win. We came there to win. We just didn't deliver.
The team, I mean, Primrose looked a little bit flat on the day, to be honest with you.
They did, because we had 2-3 new additions to the team.
Yeah.
They just came to practice a Friday night. We had the captains around the Friday night. No excuses, compliments to Collegians, and I hope we improve from here on.
Is it a big, I mean, from a nervous point of view, in terms of these derby matches, we see them in Super League A, Super League B, across the board. Did the guys get nervous before the games?
There is a tense feeling amongst the players, but obviously the newer players, because they don't know the heritage of the clubs, they won't be affected by that. But the guys who's got their heritage amongst each other, that's where the nervous part comes in.
But an enormous scenario in terms of the fact that, the fact that so many fans are supporting both sides. It's been a passion for many, many years.
Absolutely. Not only for many years, you must remember there's families involved too.
Yeah.
Some of the families with Primroses, some of the families is with Collegians, some of the ex-Primrose players playing there and ex-Collegians playing for us. And that's where the knockabouts come in, and it's hard on the paddock on the day. And it's lovely to be a coach of a scenario like that.
Yeah, Mr. H, there's quite a few derbies like this, eh?
Yeah, no, there's quite a lot, and some that's come on for years, you
Yeah.
know, and it's all about the community, the
Yeah.
community against the other community, and the passion that you see there is quite phenomenal. It's interesting.
Some other interesting results then, of course, Penil Villages 36, 27 over Hands and Hearts. And Kales River going down to NNK, 38 points to 10. Now, we asked you guys to send in a couple of your picks, fan picks. This is brought to you by the Leisure Group. Have a look at this fan pick of the week. It's sent in by Nico Groenewald. And Nico sent us his picture. We picked it up off Facebook. What a fantastic shot. And this was in that match between NNK and Kales River. Some nice fan picks coming in there. Passion's what it's all about in Western Province Rugby. Let's move our attention to Premier League A. St George's 22-10 over Paarl. There's a nice result there for St George's. Mr. H, if you had a look at any of the results there that jump out for you. Elsie's River 34-15 over Langa.
Yeah, I think Langa probably didn't expect that.
Yeah.
Because they up and coming and they really have a good team. But then Elsie's River is also doing their homework quietly there. Another result that interested me was the Kraaifontein Goodwood.
Yeah.
Last week we said it's also a derby.
Derby match, yeah.
In the 31-31.
As a draw?
Yeah.
I mean, how well do you pick it? There's something you would have put money on that draw there. Let's move our attention then to Super League B. Laguna is another team that's doing really well. They've been putting in a lot of effort. I know some of the guys that are involved there, and they've been working extremely hard, but they took on one of the big guns, Solarians. Sally, I mean, Solarians has got a nice reputation, a positive reputation. They're making some noise. There's quite a big match in it.
Definitely. But Laguna, they got a proud history, and they're a strong team. They know they're a real pushover team. They've got a lot of players coming from the townships to be affiliated with them. So their base is very strong.
Mm.
And Laguna, on the whole, for me, it's a strong team.
Let's move our attention then to Division 3. In Division 3, folks, you'll see some interesting matches. And I must say, we're going to be chatting with Cecil Lateghan from Perseverance in a couple of minutes' time. Unfortunately, not a great result for them. They went down 30 points to 10 to Gardens Tech over the weekend. But the interesting match that jumped out for me there, and I must say this is probably the result of the weekend, Mr. H, 60 points to 17, Violets over Richmond Rangers. You just don't see too many scores like that anymore.
I think Richmond Rangers at the moment is having a little bit of a crisis, and Violets is really building strongly and going forward. But Richmond Rangers, I think they're struggling a bit at the moment.
Yeah.
So
Marvin, from your perspective, a player, Super League A, what do you say to the guys in the lower leagues that are trying to make it up to the next league?
You can never give up one thing. If you have a passion for it, if there's a love that you play for, I mean, a lot of players love the game. That's why they play it.
Yeah.
And there's always a chance for any team to move up, to always give your best, try work week in, week out, not to be despondent from a result that you get there. You've got to move on from there.
You get the bad results sometimes.
You do get the bad results.
Yeah.
You can't win them all.
Yeah.
So obviously you just have to work hard, like I said, week in, week out, and just continue doing what you do.
Sally, on your side, Primrose, you guys have got one of the biggest youth structures
That's correct.
in certainly in the Western Cape. You've got youngsters who really don't know how to train hard yet.
That's correct. That's
And
the truth.
to win and to move up in these leagues, you've got to train. And you've got to train hard and you've got to put your body on the line, so to speak. I mean, what do you say to these young guys that don't quite understand how hard you need to work to achieve something?
Look, they're only grasping the concept now of working hard and putting in their personal time, not only coming to the practice on a Tuesday or Thursday and running around thrice around the field. They're quite aware what they see on the television, what they see with the professional setups and that. They're starting to lift themselves individually. But in general, there's still a lot of lethargicness in
But I mean, that's sort of all youngsters there. That Mr. H, when you were a young man not so long ago, you used to train quite hard on the field, and now it's a different story.
Yeah, a completely different story. We had coaches running with belts behind us, hitting us with canes.
Okay.
I remember the story of my cousin. He cried after in his first scrum. He played number 8.
Yeah.
And the teacher hit him with a cane and said, And then he started crying, and the teacher asked him, do you want to play rugby or do you want to cry? And he said, I'd rather cry. He never played rugby again.
Well, it's interesting that we just touched on that, because during the course of the show, we're going to have a chat about legal matters in rugby. Recently, there was a serious injury on the scrum at schoolboy level, and you would have seen it in the newspapers. Gary Scott is going to join me a little bit later, and we'll find out about whether or not you have the right to legal recourse on the rugby field. Let's quickly take a look then at the logs. A Super League A, Marty's at the top, followed by Vix. Marty's on 28 points, Vix on 22. In third place, it's UCT, Durban and Hamilton's. And then towards the bottom of Super League A, SK Warmers, False Bay, Villages, Belhar and Heidelberg. And in Super League B, we've got Tigerberg at the top of the log. Belleville, Brackenfell, Peniel Villages is sitting there in fourth in Super League B. NNK and Collegians bring up the middle space. Kales River, Primrose, Young People, Hands and Heart bring up the last four. If we look at Premier League A, St George's at the top, Hamlets at least, Kraaifontein, Goodwood, Scottsdene. Mr. H, do you think we're going to see Kraaifontein or Goodwood come out of Premier League A this year?
Could possibly be, but as I said, St George's is working very hard. They're, moving up. And if you look at the logs, you'll see that there's only a few points difference between the top up to number 5.
Yeah.
So a lot of rugby is going to be played before we can really say, that's the way it's going.
I think we touched on this last week about the coaching issues in terms of, I think it was Kraaifontein. Marvin, in your space, how important is consistency with coaching?
Very, very consistent. We recently also got our new coach, Jan Loopscher. He's assisting now with Josie van Rensburg. And he believes in consistency, whether it's your training, during games. And I feel that with this consistency, you will always get the result from that, which is always quite important.
But important to have the same coach for as long as possible.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, very true. Because the
I'm not going to ask Sally about
that. Players also get comfortable with the type of person the coach is, his methods, his game plan that he wants to implement. And with that, like I said, consistency, you keep on the training field, you get it drilled into the players, and with that, you can only become better.
Yeah.
So it's important that consistency take place, and also you can't, for instance, if the season doesn't go well, you can't just chop and change your coach.
You want to try and at least try and let the coach run his plan through.
Yes.
Well, there you have it, folks, and those are our results and logs here on Cape Rugby. But we don't just leave it there, and even though the union is supporting Cape Rugby, we do put them on the spot. We're going to be right back after this when we speak to Herman Abrams about what the union is doing at club rugby level. Back in a mo.
This is my park. I've been coming here for more than 50 years. My wife loved this place. We shared our very first kiss on this bench. I'd just come back from the war. It was a happy time. She's gone now. But I still love this place. It reminds me of her.
Love your South Africa. Vote 18 May, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Cape Rugby here on Cape Town TV. It is that time to put the union on the spot. Herman Abrams, it's that old story. The union does nothing for the clubs. Tell me a little bit more about what you guys did for the clubs this week. And I think one of the things I am quite interested in is the scenario with the lottery. Where have we been over the last 2 years with relating to the lottery?
Well, it's quite simple. If you apply to the lottery, you'll get funding. You must just make sure that your application conforms to all the requirements. If they ask you for 2 years financial statements and you send in 1 year, you don't get any money.
Are the administrators of club rugby doing that? Are they actually working?
I had a workshop last year for all the clubs. 30 clubs attended. I went as far as PAL. I had workshops for cricket and soccer clubs. But 30 rugby clubs only applied. They all
out of 90 clubs who could get money from the lottery,
yes.
who were able to get money, who were able to fill in forms, only 30 applied.
And so far, I think 12 of them have been told that they will get certain amounts of money, ranging from 120,000 to 500,000 rand. And in any club's books, that's a lot of money.
Well, I'd say.
And it is club number 90 up to club number 1. It doesn't matter where you
Anybody.
The
league is the league. Or at least the union's the union.
The union on its own also got money. We got 3.8 million. And we're spending that money all on the clubs. We've just issued all 90 clubs with balls worth 2,000 rand, which we asked them to pay 200 rand for. We're giving them jerseys. We gave 20 clubs jerseys for their under 20 sides. We gave them shorts. We gave tackle bags, pole protectors. We gave 13 clubs scrum machines. The scrum machine cost 13,000 rand each. We gave a number of clubs rugby poles. So there's a lot of things that are happening. And we are training referees free of charge. We are training coaches free of charge.
So what do you say to those clubs that you do nothing for the clubs?
But I think they must go look in the mirror and tell themselves, I'm not doing anything for myself.
Sally, in your opinion, being a club coach and being around in club rugby for a very long time, do you find that there seems to be a break in the communication maybe between clubs and the union, that they're not quite complying? I mean, where are we missing this? Where's this gap?
I can't elaborate on the gap, but what I can vouch for what Mr. Abrams has said now, we one of the recipients of this funding, and we never had a scrum machine.
Yeah.
And the scrum machine was delivered to our side, although we're still waiting for our punch bags in that. I've got a compliment on that. But basically, before that, a community club won't survive without money. And where this funding plays a major role for the upliftment.
But wouldn't you say then, if you're a community club and you really need money, that you should take the time and the effort to fill in that lottery application form?
Definitely, most definitely. Those who don't fill in will lose out, definitely.
Yeah. Marvin, on your side, I mean, obviously a first prize is to operate in the same manner as Durban. You know, I mean, not everybody has that luxury, but you guys really have turned the thing around there over the last few years. You've got little boxes and Lewis's and yes, meneer. Right?
No, but much credit must go to Mr. Karel Steenkamp and Mr. Wally Verlander. They really do the hard work behind the scenes. Being a player, you don't always see what's happening. You just know, or you would expect as players that on Saturday you get to the game, or in the week during training, you expect things to be there. But there's a lot of people that behind scenes that has to work with Mr. Abrams to get everything done. You know, they're the ones that have to sit down, they have to fill in those forms, they have to understand what the procedures are exactly behind everything.
So, Mr. H, then a final word then from the union in terms of advice for the clubs. What would it be? Would it be fill in your forms?
My response is, please respond when I talk to you. We asked clubs a week ago, 33 clubs received money from the Department of Sport via a program that we initiated. I asked them to send their bank details. In the end, I had to write out checks for them because only 10 sent in their details. And that is the problem. We don't have the response that we should have from the clubs. There's lots of places that you can get money from.
I think maybe this year we'll institute a new award. It's the Administrator of the Year award. And we'll see which of the club rugby administrators are the ones that are actually playing the game. But let's move our attention now to Q&A. Playing the game of rugby, of course, not the game of administration. But let's Q&A now is your opportunity to ask the panel a couple of questions here at Cape Rugby on Cape Town TV. We ask you on Twitter, on Facebook, and on the Club Rugby website to post your questions. Please, folks, do it. You've got me here, you've got the panel here. Not that I know anything, but we've got the panel of experts here every week. And we want you to ask us on Twitter what you want to ask of the panel. So our first question then this evening came in from Phil Frick. And we've got a few more coming in as well, but you can post them on Twitter, Facebook, and on the website. Phil Frick brings up the post. He loves the debate, club loyalty versus chasing cash. All right, now we've got a great scenario here. I would say that, you know, Marvin, you guys are the money club, and Sally, you guys are the non-money club. I mean, you've got two distinct differences here. Yeah. Oh, so Primroses is the money club. All right, but the fact is, I mean, you know,
I'm an unpaid coach, so don't make that sense.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a sort of a scenario here of you guys doing really well in Super League A, and when you start getting into that situation, the sponsors are looking after you. I mean, you're obviously in the spotlight more than the lower leagues. Whereas, Sally, from a Primrose point of view, you don't necessarily have that luxury, and you have to work a little bit harder than the guys that are in Super League A who are not necessarily playing the Varsity Cup and getting onto TV, which is why, incidentally, folks, why this show is so great, that finally we're able to showcase as many clubs as possible. So make sure you support the show. But Sally, I mean, in your opinion, is it a concern for you that people are looking to buy players?
It's a concern. For any club to survive in this league, whether it's the Premier A or the Premier B, you've got to buy players to be competitive, because Durbanville buys all the players, and they scalp all the good players from other clubs to come play for them. where our community club, they use the juniors that come the continuity program, a program that follows, and we got to work with that. And where the money is concerned, I can't even mention that.
This is sort of what the Bulls do to Boland.
Exactly.
We see all the development there, and then they take them up north. But I suppose that's where the money is, and how can you say to a player, sorry, we're going to deny you a future of making more money? I mean, Marvin, in your situation, you know, you're playing, you're a young guy, great talent, great potential, and if somebody comes along to you and says, listen, I'm going to put a little bit more money in your pocket to play rugby, and you have the opportunity to look after your future, your family, and so on. I mean, what do you say? Sorry, no, I don't want your money.
Rugby definitely has changed from the love of the sport to becoming an occupation. And with the occupation comes a salary. So a lot of the players have gone towards it saying that, okay, I'm going to make rugby my occupation. And whatever I do around that, it's fine. So.
But Mr. H is not like that in all of the leagues. Maybe Super League A, Super League B, when you start getting lower down than that, there's no money in the game.
No, then they really struggle. And one must take your hat off for those guys who put hands in their own pockets to keep the thing going, keeping the players off, you know, trying to assist the players. I don't know if I must say, but Marvin apparently refused a Western Province contract in favor of a Durbanville contract. So
I'm not going to make any comment on that.
That's where the money is.
Well, you know, well, there's a few different perspectives on that. Let's go left field now, folks. Many of you visit that popular club rugby website, www.wpclubrugby.co.za, Mr. H?
That's right.
That's right. And so you'll be talking on the chat zone over there. Now, we all know that this gets pretty heated. So we've got a few minutes that we're going to take a look at some of the topics that are flying around on the chat zone. One of the first ones there is the scenario over the weekend at Newlands. A lot of Crusaders fans booing the Stormers. We see this sometimes when the All Blacks are playing the Springboks. Many people don't understand that there is a legacy of All Black supporters in South Africa. Is this something we should be concerned about, or is it just a group of people that must just relax, enjoy the game, and understand that supporters have the right to support who they want to support?
You're quite right. Everybody can support who they want to, as long as you do it within the bounds of, you know, being sportsmanlike about it. I believe that, you know, booing is not really honest, not sportsmanlike. Some people like the booing to take place. But if you boo people the 1 week, then you mustn't expect the next week, if they boo you, to cry foul. So unless we stop booing completely, then...
But, I mean, sorry, let me ask you then. I'll put you on the spot here. Is this just a crowd of people that are going to Newlands to try and annoy another crowd of people?
That's the atmosphere of rugby. You've got to have different opinions. Imagine 90,000 people sitting quietly, like we're sitting in the church. That's what rugby. Rugby should, so it's about booing and ragging and whatever this is.
I mean, to be honest with you, I don't really see much difference between a Bulls supporter and a Cape Town rugby supporter. They both go rather mental when they're watching that game. Am I right?
Yeah. The loyalty is way ahead of the match.
I mean, this is definitely an interesting conversation. Yeah.
Although you must be careful when you equate Stormers fans with Bull fans. There is a difference.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no, yeah, about 80
What's
kilos.
the difference?
About 80 kilos per person. Another question that came up then over the weekend, or at least that was on the chat zone then, is the derby between All Saints and Strand Pioneers. Again, now another question of the derby scenario. All Saints, been around a long time, Strand Pioneers.
And the All Saints, they play on the field right next to the N2 as you enter Somerset West. And I think on Saturday there will be a few thousand people there because they are heading the log at the moment in that division, and I think Pioneers is just closely behind them.
Yeah.
So there will be a lot of interest in that game.
Another derby match.
I
think we would love to see more derby, more money for the derby matches. Put it that way, that the sponsors start identifying the derby matches. And it doesn't matter then which league you're sponsoring or which team you're sponsoring, but identify those derby matches because there's going to be a lot of people where you can get branding for your crowd. I mean, would you agree with that, Marvin? I mean, the sponsors come there to see the big matches.
That's correct. No, definitely. Where the people are, that's where the money will be.
Yeah, and that's where you want to get to.
Yeah.
Of course, folks, one of the questions that we asked, or at least the post that we put up on that website, was for you to post your questions. So send them to us. Tweet them to us at Cape Rugby TV, or inbox us on our Facebook page, and we'd love to have those questions for our panel over here and post it to the experts that can answer them. Well, of course, as you know, this show is proudly supported by Evox Advanced Nutrition. Now, what would the show be if it wasn't a little bit helpful, a little bit educational? So we went down to Newlands on Friday morning, the day before the Crusaders game, and we caught up with Stefan de Tooy. He is the head conditioning coach of Western Province Rugby and the DHL Stormers, and he tells us a little bit more about sports nutrition for rugby. Let's take a look at this. Hello everybody, and welcome to our first insert on sports nutrition. Of course, we're at Newlands today with Stefan de Tooy. Stefan is the conditioning fitness coach for the DHL Stormers. Hello, Steph.
Hi JP, good.
Yeah,
good to see you.
good. Big game for you guys tomorrow, Crusaders, huh?
Yeah, big. I said from the start of the season, this is the one that I'm looking forward to. You want to measure yourself against the best, so tomorrow's the day.
So folks, you can see it, this is live. We're at Newlands, it's 8 a.m. The guys are getting ready for captain's run, and those are the realities of rugby. It's an early day, and tomorrow is a massive game against the Crusaders. But more to the point, the reason we're here today is to talk about sports nutrition. Stefan, how important is it to have an official sports nutrition supplier for the Stormers?
No, it's massive. I think one of the biggest attributes of having an official supplier is that you use products that are clean, products that you know are used without any clouds covering it, giving it to players, knowing that it's safe to use. It's one of the biggest things in sport.
Is this something that helps stop the players from shopping at different places where they could get bad advice?
It would. There's always a little space for personal use or personal choice to creep in, but we want to remove that as much as we can. So that's why we've gone the Evox route. We've gone it for a couple of years, and it's just been growing from strength to strength. We've specifically gone that route in aspects of two ways. Basically, choice of quality, and then the official sponsorship that comes with safety, recommendations coming from Evox, knowing that their products are clean.
Yeah, and of course, recently we saw 2 Springboks test positive for banned substances, and subsequently more on the international basis. You don't want that to happen to any of the players, so the quality and safety aspect must be very important.
Exactly, and big money involved for them to lose their contracts.
Let's quickly look at from a club rugby perspective now, and what would you advise a club rugby player or a club rugby coach in terms of nutrition? You've got certain systems at the Stormers that surely they could learn from.
The biggest thing is that the players must use it. So in essence, you want to give him something that he believes in, which we've achieved this year. Not more so than in previous years, but it's just gone from strength to strength.
Can nutrition,
sorry James, just the other thing is that for club players, you want to make sure that they've got something that can carry them through their working day. They're not professional like the players that play Super 14, Currie Cup, some Vodacom Cup players. So when he's at his working desk, in his warehouse, on the road, you want to make sure that he's got his 5XL with him. It's got enough carbs, protein mix, Before he goes to gym, he's stacking on his BCAAs. If he's slightly overweight, he chooses Synergy Way, which are all affordable products. That's, I think, is the main thing.
Well, of course, the club rugby players are all sponsored, which I don't think that they realise.
Perfect.
So, yeah, folks, by the way, if you are a club rugby or a school rugby player, you're affiliated to Western Province Rugby, don't forget you are actually sponsored by Evox Advanced Nutrition, who is the official supplier to Western Province Rugby. Steph, let's just touch on one thing before we close up. Recovery. Is that the most important, or is it about gaining weight or gaining speed? I mean, would you say recovery is the first thing you should worry about?
Depends on different times of the season.
Yeah.
For us now, recovery is massive. We use a selection of products according to individual player needs. Off-season, we were using from creatine, 5XL, your BCAA stacks, your Synergy Ways. We were using Evox energy bars, which we still use, the protein bars, but it depends on the time of season. I would say for us now, performance in games and then recovery from games to the next game is massive. But then in the off-season, we had massive achievements, especially this year, from players who were using 100-gram creatine to load up this creatine monohydrate. We've gone back to the monohydrate way, which we've seen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been in the system for years. We've just proven again this year that, or off-season 2010, 2011, that you got to use this if you want to grow.
So, folks, there you have it then from Stefan here at the Stormers. Creatine, branched chain amino acids, we've got the proteins and the carbohydrates. We'll get into more of that in the next show. Until next time, Steph, thank you very much.
Thanks, James.
Bye-bye.
It's been a pleasure.
That was, of course, us joining Stefan de Tooy at Newlands, the captain's run before the Crusaders game. And what a pleasure to have Stefan talking to us about nutrition in the world of rugby. Congratulations then to Seaton Nolan, this week's winner of the SMS competition. Seaton wins 500 Rands worth of Evox products. Remember, if you want to enter that same competition, just tell us who is the official sports nutrition supplier to Western Province Rugby and the DHL Stormers. Send your answer and your name to 32010. It's as easy as that, and you could be in line to win yourself 500 Rand worth of Evox products. Joining me now on the show and looking at our Club Rugby history feature is Cecil Lateghan. Cecil is the president of Perseverance and a life member at Western Province Rugby. Hello, Cecil.
Hi.
Fantastic to have you here, and it's so nice to speak to someone about the history of Club Rugby, a feature aspect of rugby that we certainly don't want to forget.
Yeah, we're quite proud. It's an honor for me to be here. And I'm going to speak about the Perseverance Rugby Club. As you know from just our record, we've been in existence for 121 years.
Yeah.
So that rivals your Hamiltons and your Villages to quite a great extent. And we're very pleased, you know, our existence comes from family traditions.
Yeah.
We've had the Benjamins and the Mitchells and the Petersons down the line with a very few other greats also with the club. We've had our glory years. You know, in 1950, we were one of those clubs that took all the trophies in the union, first, second, and third team, and for a run of about 5-6 years under Al Kruger as captain and those guys, we really had a great run.
I've got to ask you though, Cecil, I mean, you know, you've got youngsters like Marvin from Durban over here, and you know, we're not so sure if the guys remember the history of club rugby anymore. Do you think we're losing sight of the legacy and some of the history of our clubs?
I think we are. To tell you the truth, you know, when we have a game, the derbies you spoke about earlier on, let's say Progress is playing against Cities or Percy's Temperance, all the old guys come out with their blazers on and all that sort of thing, and some of them carry photos around with them. And Naude did, you remember that, and all that sort of thing. Our history is there, JP, and you're the first one that's going to try and uncover it. And I sincerely hope we're going to be able to do this to all the other clubs in all divisions.
We're going to do the best that we can. I mean, you talk about the photos, and I'm so excited the fact that you've managed to have folks have a look at this. We managed to get a couple out here. Here's H.O. Kruger. He was the first coloured Springbok, and that was back in 1950. Cecil, you've got to tell me, who does he look like?
In today's games, number 8, Herman, what would you say? He looks like our own number 8 at the moment. Same type of build.
He looks a little bit like Dwayne Vermeulen.
Dwayne Vermeulen, same type of guy. Robust when he played, you know.
You know, if there's something, I mean, and how important is that though? He was the first coloured Springbok.
He from the club, I must say. You know, there were a lot of
From the
them
club.
as they were selected there.
Mr. H, I mean, have people forgotten that the fact that there were two Springboks teams back in the day?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have forgotten that.
Yeah.
And maybe it's good that you remind them so now and again of the history. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. I think it's long overdue. We've got another fantastic image here. Les Twigg, he was a lock at Perseverance, and he was the second Springbok at your club there, Cecil.
That's right, yeah. You know, he's one of those guys, came from the old Western Province Union, which was the same rivals to the City and Suburban Union that we played for. And he also became a Springbok at Perseverance.
Now,
one of the great names.
This is obviously one of the picks that are maybe a little bit more recent, considering that it's actually in colour.
Yeah.
And this team were the team champions 3 times in succession during 1970.
During the 70s, yeah. Well, they went through unbeaten on 2 occasions, and on the 3rd occasion they drew the diamond final with Temperance. That stopped us from making a clean sweep 3 times in a row. But that was the team there. Again, you can see the family tradition I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
There are Benjamins there, there are Petersons there, there are Mitchells there. You know, that's a very proud history. And there's one of the great guys. Sally was on your panel earlier. He knows Timmy Gelderbloem. One of the great guys that would have been probably one of the Springbok scrum-offs had he been at the time.
Do the youngsters of today, do they still sit and listen to the stories, or are they all running around the malls playing computers? I mean, there's fantastic history here.
Some of them, you know, when you get an old boy that's still around, we've got an old chap, he's on one of those photos, Andrew October. When we have an annual general meeting and he's there, everybody like a bees around the honeypot want to be there, you know, drain him of all the information that he's got. And that's fantastic, you know, that'll carry on.
And would you agree with me that that these are the guys who were the heroes in the community? These are the guys that carried, you know, were the role models.
They were. You know, you had a lot of guys when we played rugby at that time. You had your H.O. de Villiers and all those guys that were your role models. But then again, we also had an H.O. before that, H.O. Kruger. He was one of the role models for our guys again. And they were great guys. And we should keep the history, uncover the history, and you'll be surprised what's going to come out of some of the other clubs and their traditions, you know.
Yeah, well, Cecil, I must say a big thank you then for joining us here on Cape Rugby, and as we uncover the history of rugby going back so far, and hopefully we can, you know, follow suit with some of the other clubs that have managed to preserve their history like this so strongly.
I'd like to just mention to you there, you've got a little booklet there. In 1963, we had the first ladies team that played rugby at City Park, and people seem to think they didn't play rugby. Ladies never played rugby earlier on than that. We played against Herman's club, the Lansdowne club, a ladies team, and about 3 or 4 of those.
Were you in the ladies team, Hermie?
3 or 4 of those ladies ended up in hospital on the afternoon, and the man at the hospital, the doctor said, "You girls playing hockey?" He said, "No, we played rugby." He said, "What? Are you mad? Rugby?" That type of thing, you know. And it goes back quite far.
Well, fantastic then to see that you did such an excellent job way from the beginning with little match programs, and what a fantastic stuff then. Folks, if that was our history feature, we'll be doing it every week here on Cape Rugby, on Cape Town TV. Now, you would have heard during the last few weeks, or at least the last couple of days, you would have seen headlines in the newspaper, and here's one of them: shock rugby injury. We're going to be speaking to Gary Cox, a legal administrator, about the legalities of rugby and the kind of trouble you can get into if you perform illegal techniques on the field. First, we'll take an ad break. We'll be back in a mo. Hello everybody, welcome to Cape Rugby here on Cape Town TV. Well, it's been an interesting few weeks in the courts in terms of the legalities around rugby. You would have seen in the last couple of days headlines: shock rugby injury ruling. Now, what is this all about, you will be asking yourself. Well, it seems like back in 2005 there was a very serious injury in the scrum amongst schoolboy level. And now 2011, 6 years down the line, and the courts have run the course, and it seems like players can be held guilty for inappropriate actions on the rugby field. Joining me in the studio now is Gary Cox from Abrams and Gross. Gary, welcome to Cape Rugby.
Thank you, JP.
Is that a fact? I mean, is that a scenario now? You can be held liable for, illegal incidents or off the ball incidents?
Not necessarily off the ball incidents. The court has made a ruling. As the Constitution gives everyone the right to access to the court, anyone who feels aggrieved can approach the court for a ruling in their favour or not in their favour. What's special that comes out of this case is that the court decided that although a person walks onto a rugby field essentially consenting or understanding that they could get injured, they don't consent to all possibilities of injury. You certainly consent to perhaps getting your ankle twisted or injured like that, but if there's something that's beyond your reasonable foreseeability, you can hold the other person liable for it.
Well, the story does get quite a lot of coverage here. And I'm quoting now directly out of the Cape Times, folks. The story was written by Zara and Nicholson. In a landmark judgment in the Western Cape High Court yesterday, a former school rugby player won his case against an opposing player who injured him so severely that a scrum left him with a broken neck. Now, yes, I can understand you say that you can consent to certain injuries. In actual fact, I can't understand that. I can understand I consent to maybe pulling my hamstring or twisting my ankle. But surely the laws of rugby, and certainly now with the high tackle law and dangerous tackle, the laws of rugby should protect me on the field. Now we have a scenario here that finally, if something is happening that is sort of outside the ambit of the game, a player can be held liable.
Firstly, it's not what injury you consent to, it's what action causes that injury which you consent to.
Right.
So there's a fundamental difference there.
Okay.
You can consent perhaps to someone tackling you normally in the course of the thing and breaking your neck. That's unfortunately, you can't sue someone for that. It's within the rules of the game. What the court did say is that someone can be beyond the laws of the game and you still can't hold them liable. A late tackle, a small off-the-ball incident, something like that, which actually happens quite frequently in rugby. Someone, when they walk onto a rugby field, they understand that perhaps I'm going to pass the ball and someone's going to late tackle me.
Okay, well let me ask you a simple question. What if someone punches me on the field?
It's a bit of a grey area. I was thinking about that before because it happens quite frequently on a rugby field. Someone does throw a punch. However, it's well beyond the laws of the games, and I would venture a guess to say that if someone deliberately punches you and causes you severe harm, you'd be able to hold them liable.
So I can go to a police station after the game and lay a charge?
Well, that's two different things. There's criminal liability, and in this case we have civil liability.
But that's assault.
I certainly think that when you walk onto the field, you consent to being tackled hard, you consent perhaps to getting rucked every now and again, but you don't consent to being punched in the face, and that would be beyond the limits of the law, and I believe you'd be able to.
Marvin, let's ask you, you guys are playing Superliga, it's tough as hell, and there's the odd little clipper there that comes through from the lock on the opposing team when you're scrumming down. I mean, do you think that as a player this is something you need to be careful of, that you've got to watch your tempo on the field?
No, you definitely need to be, you have to be disciplined a lot of the times. I mean, Evan's been disciplined with you retaliating if you get punched. I mean, I've been punched quite a few times.
Yeah, I can see that.
But it's like you said, it's quite a grey area where punches are thrown. I mean, it's rugby. Rugby is a physical game. As
club rugby is particularly, Gary, let's go back to you on this. Club rugby is certainly in a situation that people forget about this. There are no cameras.
Yeah.
There's a referee on a Saturday. There's no glitz and glamour about it in a lot of the leagues. And there's not 4 cameras, 5 cameras watching the game. There's no slow-mo replays. The referee's on the other side of the field. Anything can happen. Do you think that we're getting to a stage now that players can get onto the field and play rugby between 4 white lines and feel safe that the law is protecting them on the field also?
I definitely don't think so. The law protects you just as much as it protects you in a dark alley. You should be able to walk down a dark alley and not be able to be attacked. But although there are laws there to protect you, the same thing can happen on a rugby field. At the bottom of a ruck, you're essentially in a dark alley.
You could be walking out of a dark tunnel.
Exactly.
Mr. H, have we had any other legal scenarios in the Western Cape? I mean, what happened with Rian Lewitz?
Yeah, this is now schoolboy rugby.
Yeah.
The others all happened at senior rugby.
Yes.
The Rian Lewitz case, other cases where fingers were bitten off or ears were bitten off. Those all ended in court and judgment given. So
but actually, remember Evander Holyfield charging Mike Tyson. He didn't consent to that either.
That's a classic example. You can say I walked into the ring willing to have my whole body beaten to shreds. In this example, as I said, slight infringements allowed. Maybe a low blow would have been allowed there, and he could have consented after this within the bounds of consideration. But having your ear bitten, that's well beyond your bounds of consideration. So you can't be deemed to have consented to that sort of act.
Gary, you were a player yourself, 6 or 7 years at UCT.
Yes.
If you had to give any players or coaches or referees any advice, having looked at this article in the Cape Times, what would it be?
Stick within the bounds of the laws and you're safe.
Fantastic stuff. There you heard it first here on Cape Rugby on Cape Town TV, folks. When we come back, we'll wrap it up with Marvin and with Asali about what's happening this weekend in the fixtures in Western Province Rugby. Back in a mo. Hi everybody, and welcome back to Cape Rugby here at Cape Town TV. And of course, don't forget the show is brought to you with the kind compliments of Evox and the Leisure Group. You want to find yourself an absolutely fine hotel, go check out Strand Towers in Strand Street in Cape Town. Great hotel, great accommodation and fantastic prices. It is now that time for us to take a look at the fixtures coming up this weekend. Well, it is some big matches then, guys. What would you say? And this incidentally, folks, these matches are brought to you courtesy of our tipster at the Union, Faisal Felton, the chief administrator. He's put together these matchups then. Sali, what would you say? Big match in Super League A, if you had to choose one?
UCT Marties.
UCT Marties, another derby match.
Another derby.
Marvin, what can we expect there?
It's going to be very, very tough one. These two teams have got a great history, so it will be a very, very good game. I'm going for Marties.
You're going for Marties. Amies and Vix, Mr. H?
Well, I think Hamiltons will like to redeem themselves, and if they don't, they are in, they're in the struggle.
SK Warmers has had a pretty good run up to now. I mean, they've been in their Super League for a while. Marvin, Belhar, they've just hit the straps here, and they've been a little bit up, a little bit down. And I'm sure we're going to have two sort of different types of temperaments hitting this game. SK Warmers wanting to stay on a high, and Belhar wanting to make sure that they don't lose the momentum.
Yeah, you're only as good as your last game. And
Yeah.
obviously, they'd want to pick it up from now on because they've felt and experienced what it feels to win, and they want to keep it there. Also, a little small derby as well. I mean, Belhar, SK Warmers,
Also,
come a long way.
Absolutely,
So it'll definitely be a good game.
Good point there. Let's move to Super League B then, folks. Belleville and Collegians. Collegians just, of course, came off a win against Primrose, 27-25. So no one better than us than you, Sali. How do you see that going?
Draw.
A draw. Did you say draw? All right, we'll leave it at that. We'll come back to these some of these next week. Peniel Villages against Brackenfell, Mr. H.
Brackenfell running top, but Peniel Villages always difficult to beat at home.
Oh, is this a home game?
It's a home game for them, always difficult. So Brackenfell will have to be at the very best. They want to beat them there.
Premier League A, Kraaifontein, we've had this discussion a lot, and Marvin, I know we had a chat about this in terms of coaching, but Kraaifontein take on Hamlets over the weekend. Is this a Kraaifontein win, or do we see more in that draw that they had over the weekend?
Whoever wants it more, again.
Obviously,
Kraaifontein is not going to want another draw, and they're definitely not going to want to lose it. Obviously, Hamlets, good strong position where they are. They'll want to keep that form and want to go for the win, definitely.
Scottsdene St. George's, you were singing the praises of St. George's, top of the log there, Mr. H.
There's reasons for that.
There's reasons for that.
Yeah.
You're not going to tell us why?
No, well, my grandfather started that club. My father played for them.
Your grandfather started St. George's?
Yeah.
And your father played for them?
Yeah.
And you played for them?
I was only the mascot.
So, can we say that this is going to be a walk then, St. George's over Scottsdene?
I'll have to speak to the referees.
Yeah, we will be speaking to the referees next week, folks. In actual fact, the referees will be joining us on the show, and we'll be talking about the different laws and so forth. Premier League B, UWC against Solarians, another big one, Mr. H.
Yes,
UWC coming out of the Varsity Cup, Solarians always doing well.
And the two of them have had issues for a long time now, and I hope on Saturday they put all the issues aside and play the rugby that we expect them to play.
Marvin, Lagunya and Silvertree, and we spoke about earlier, and Lagunya also doing well.
Very, very strong. They've got a big forward pack. So I'm sure they want to dominate in front.
Yeah.
But again, Silver Tree, like I said, the guys at the moment, they don't stand back really for anybody.
In Division 3, it's Violets against Krutisville from two opposite sides of the world.
Yeah, no, but that should be a walk in the park for Violets, I think.
You think so? I don't know, but there's a few people in Krutisville that will argue that point. Masiphumelele take on Peninsula in Division 4, and it's the Nepal region, and we haven't forgotten about you. And I'm sure that the folks in Nepal are actually watching us online as opposed to watching us live, because remember, of course, folks, that you need to be watching off the Tygerberg transmitter if you're watching Cape Town TV. Fantastic, though, that we're doing Cape Rugby on Cape Town TV, and it's long overdue that someone is looking after rugby in Cape Town. Club rugby, school rugby, and, of course, primary school rugby. All happens right here on Cape Town TV. Vineyards up against Windmill United. That's your final pick of the matches this week. Remember, folks, you can join us here every Wednesday at 9:30 when we talk about Cape Rugby. Sali, Marvin, Mr. H, thank you very much for joining me here on Cape TV.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. It's a pleasure.
And it is Cape Rugby here on Cape Town TV, and we bring you all of the best rugby on a regular basis. So make sure that you join us weekly. And don't forget that you can contact us on Facebook. Just go and do a search on Cape Rugby TV. You can follow us on Twitter at Cape Rugby TV as well. And if you want to send us a little message, which we're asking you to do, please, together with that footage, any photographs that you might have, any videos that you might have, send it to us. We are dying to have it on the show so that we can broadcast all about you and the history of club rugby and the rest of rugby in Cape Town. That's a wrap from us, folks. We'll see you again next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.